On today's show, I have the president of PVOLVE, Julie Cartwright. Julie, how are you today?
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being on. So tell us, what is PVOLVE? What are you guys all about?
Yeah, PVOLVE is actually a brand new modality in the market of fitness. And what it is, it combines functional movement and resistance-based equipment together. And what that does for the body is not only produces like a lifted butt, really great toned core, defined arms, which is absolutely what you would expect from your fitness choice, but it also does so much more. It actually helps with mobility, flexibility, posture, balance, pain relief, prehab, if you will, and helps you to avoid injuries. And there's just a lot we've done around proving that out. So it's really an amazing workout that really anyone can do,
Mhm.
but it certainly feels a little bit different than probably what you're doing.
Okay. So how was this concept even born?
The concept was born, the founder, Rachel Katzman, she was bouncing around from boutique fitness to boutique fitness in her early 20s. I think she was 21, 22 at the time. And she was really seeking a physical look, again, lifted butt, really strong core to look good.
Mhm.
And through that, she was waking up every single day in pain. She was sort of attributing this idea of getting a great body with being in pain, and you just that's what you have to do. It's
Mm.
like no pain no gain.
Right.
And she realized she had scoliosis. She got diagnosed with scoliosis, and she was sort of at a loss. And she one day walked into a gym and they were training more of functional movement, which functional movement is more moving the way your body was intended to move. It sort of mimics your everyday movements.
Mhm.
You move in all three planes of motion. And she not only started to get the results that she wanted, she'll tell you, she's like, oh my gosh, my body was exactly what I wanted. But more importantly, she had this aha moment that, wow, I'm actually waking up energized. I'm not feeling depleted. I'm waking up without pain. And this idea was born. She said, what can I do to really accelerate the results that I'm starting to experience? And she was a young entrepreneur. She's the daughter of a really successful entrepreneur. And she was raised sort of around the kitchen table of what is she going to do, like in terms of the first company that she's going to build.
Mhm.
And she just stopped at nothing. She got my name, and we just started to build this together.
Okay. So how'd she find you?
Oh gosh, she found us, thank God, through a family friend. I had spent about 18 years in really product development, home entertainment. I worked for a home entertainment company. So think VHS back in the day,
Right.
VHS, DVDs, and then digital. And the company that I worked for was owned by Stars, and then later was acquired by Lionsgate.
Mhm.
And so I was in product development, I was in marketing. I later ran home entertainment, but really the important thing is that I was the general manager for our fitness division my entire career. So for 18 years, I had worked with Billy Blanks and Tracy Anderson and Crunch and Weight Watchers, and just developing really content
Oh, wow.
to sell to major mass retail. And so the industry is pretty small. And she kept hearing my name through a family friend, and I kept being like, "Yeah, sorry, I've got a job. I'm really happy where I'm at," and kept rising up in my career, and later was running home entertainment for Lionsgate. And she just wouldn't take no for an answer. She just would not. And I flew home on a red eye in January of 2017. And she flew in from New York to Chicago to meet me. And her story was so compelling. It was at
Mm.
the end of really the CrossFit boom, where a lot of people, and I've got mad respect for CrossFit, so I'm not at all talking negatively, but a lot of people were getting injured. And I was 40, so I certainly understood at the time how important it is to feel good, and to make sure that you're doing things that really will support you in your future. And it just spoke to me. I went home that night and told a friend. I said, my life has changed today. I just know it. And I decided to do a side hustle that entire year, being sort of an executive at Lionsgate and then working nights and weekends, trying to help her sort of bring this concept to life.
Wow. That's fascinating. You had shared with me before we started recording the podcast, something that you guys are doing that's really, really unique in the fitness industry that is so common. There's so many, obviously, fitness franchises, but I want you to tell the audience, like, what you guys did that was so different. And I assume this is really how you really started the company.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a couple things that we've done that's really different, in terms of like our mode of distinction. First of all, we really started digitally native. So our method, PVOLVE method, really is the functional movement and resistance-based equipment. And that's really important because we're clinically backed and all of our results are around functional movement and our patented pieces of resistance equipment together and what that sort of unlocks in your body. So first and foremost, it's the modality, it's our patented pieces of equipment, and we started to sell those globally through an e-commerce site, through Shopify. And that happened on November of 2017. And bing, 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 we're getting all these orders and, so we're sort of on to something. And with that, we sort of knew that we had a concept that was resonating, this idea that you could get the physical look that you were looking for, but you also could have so much more from your choice of fitness. And so we decided to officially start the company on January of 2018. So I think the modality itself is a mode of distinction, the patented pieces of equipment, but also the fact that we started really D2C. And then Rachel and I sort of looked at each other and we said to ourselves, it's not going to be okay just to have a digital community. It really won't. We are also consumers, and we know that there's times when you need to show up in real life, that you want to have a physical community, that you need some accountability, that you need some maybe hands-on training. And we wanted to have an in-studio presence as well, where it was completely hybrid. And this was back in 2019, late 2018. And we wanted it to be completely fluid for the member so that when maybe her baby was sleeping at home and she couldn't get in, she could do her exact workout at home, but then she could also meet up with her girlfriends on the weekend at her local studio, which is kind of a crazy concept, to be honest, because when you think about straight digital and e-commerce and D2C play, it's very high margin. And we had to go to the investor and say, by the way, I know we're growing and that's really high margin and that's great, but this isn't going to be the long-term success of the company. We really need to build out physical locations. We want to have a couple that are owned and operated so that we can make sure that we can make this successful. And then what we're going to do is we're going to franchise. And the reason we're going to franchise is because Rachel and I were entrepreneurs. We knew what an owner puts into starting a business, making sure that it's successful, staying with it during its tough times, and rising up when you're sort of reaching really success. And we wanted to build a world-class science-backed method, and we felt that owner-operators owning the physical locations was going to be the right model. And I think we had it right.
I think you did. The thing that you also did so right, Julie, that you and Rachel did from a timing perspective is you didn't know the future, obviously, but you took action way back when in 2017. You didn't know there was going to be a pandemic in 2020. Do you know how life would have changed for both of you if you had waited and kicked this idea around, if Rachel didn't, seek you out and you guys didn't start when you did? Because if she would have kicked this around for years, like so many entrepreneurs do, they have this idea, they have a fear, they don't want to get started. Their friends and family tell them all the reasons why something won't work. If you all had waited a year or two, you and I probably wouldn't be talking right now. And the significance I'm getting to is the fact that you mentioned D2C, and for those that aren't familiar, that's digital to consumer. So you started having a subscription-based online workout that folks could do. And you started this, what year? The D2C?
We started in 2017.
Yeah, in 2017. And then you didn't franchise until 2023. So I mention this because there are so many emerging founders that are listening to this, or people wanting to franchise their company. And I want them to hear really closely to your story, because this is not about physical fitness. This is about two entrepreneurs that took massive action when you did, and timing is everything, because you can make the right decision, but have the wrong timing and it doesn't work out.
Oh my gosh, you are speaking to me. I mean, I'll tell you, it's not just about that. I mean, we started actually the FDD process, really setting up our franchise model in 2019. So that's really when we started to set everything up. We opened only one location, owned and operated, in late 2019. We opened our two other owned and operated in 2020. So we were the operators. But keep in mind, our business was sort of thriving on the D2C side. And so we were already digitally native. So when the world shut down in March of 2020, we were the operators that experienced that. We were the ones that were pivoting very quickly and making sure that our member base, our physical member base, knew that there was a digital solution. And it was so great to have to go through that as the operators, because I think you learn a lot of lessons, but there's so much more than that. I think I've been on a couple of podcasts where I'm so grateful for where this industry is at an inflection point, because I think we were incredibly progressive, and a lot of people called us crazy back in 2019 and 2020 when we were talking about women's health, when we were talking about menopause, when we were talking about movement for more than just getting a physical appearance, the idea about longevity. I remember talking to a marketing team and saying, I really think we stand for longevity. And they're like, oh, longevity does not work. It does not work in marketing jargon. And I'm like, but that's what we're doing. We're helping you to live longer. And so luckily we had an investor that really believed in us. And so I'm so grateful for that. But a lot of people called us crazy. And now the entire industry has caught up to, you have to have hybrid. Right. You have to have options. You've got to have flexibility for your client base, not just your member base if you're not in fitness. And, you've got to have differentiation, and you have to stand for something. And we really took a women's first lens, and we weren't apologetic about it. That doesn't mean it won't work for you, Frank. It absolutely will. But what is built for a man doesn't necessarily work for a woman because of our hormones. But what works for a woman can work for a man. So it's just, I'm so grateful for those convictions. But believe me, if all of this wasn't happening right now, I wouldn't have learned a lot of lessons that are helping us to guide this company so much more successfully today. So a little bit of it's luck.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.